We all have been hearing about artificial intelligence and machine learning for a number of years now, and ChatGPT, an AI chatbot, has been getting a lot of coverage lately. So I decided to give it a try myself. I have to say that I found it to be very good, impressive actually. So the question that is being asked is if AI is going to replace programmers and if the world wouldn't need human software engineers anymore in a few years. In my opinion, the answer is no. AI wouldn't replace programmers, at least not anytime soon. I will explain why I think so shortly. First, let me quickly share with you the sort of questions I asked ChatGPT. Here is one of the questions I asked ChatGPT. I asked it to create a chatting application using HTML and JavaScript. In response, it generated this HTML page with an input field and a button. There is also some JavaScript that takes the string from the input field and sends it to the chat server. But we don't have a chat server yet. So next I asked ChatGPT to create a WebSocket-based chat server in Java. And ChatGPT generated this Java code in response and described nicely how this Java class works. This Java code is functional and it is a good starting point. But when you're building a real chatting application, then you will need to add a lot more to this code. The description provided by ChatGPT suggests that I need a library that supports WebSocket protocol. So I decided to ask it to give me the code to start up the chat server using Jetty. And in response, it generated another class file containing the code to start up the chat server on port 8080 using Jetty. Let's run this application and see if it actually works. Here is what the HTML page generated by ChatGPT looks like. Let's send a couple of messages. So this application definitely works. Let us now see some of the additional questions I asked ChatGPT and the responses I received. Now let's quickly take a look at some additional code samples provided to me by ChatGPT. Here I'm asking it to create a database table named person with 4 fields. It understood my question and also chose the right field as the primary key. Here I am asking it to use Java and a Spring framework to build a REST API that allows me to read, update, and insert data into the person table. What's impressive about the code provided by ChatGPT is that it made use of all the fields in the person table I asked it to create earlier. In my opinion, a code sample like this is a great starting point, but it isn't all that is needed to make this REST API work. And here I asked it to write a function that takes 2 date variables as input parameters and compares them to today's date and return the latest of the 3 dates. It understood the requirements and provided exactly the code I needed. The code looks correct to me, but I will admit that I haven't tried running it. So all the answers I saw so far were truly impressive. But now I am going to show a few things that weren't as great. Let's take a look. When I was building the chat application, I needed to locate the jar file containing this class. I asked ChatGPT what should I do, and it suggested that I should download the Java EE API version 7 from the Maven repository. I then asked what is the latest version of the Java EE API, and the answer it provided was incorrect. It suggested that the latest version of the library is version 7 as of January 2021. But the latest version is version 8, and it was released in 2017. It did suggest me to go and check the latest version myself and provided the correct link also. Here is another example where I asked ChatGPT to pick the smallest of the three numbers, and it picked the wrong number. However, it did correct itself when I told it that the response is incorrect. I also asked ChatGPT to provide me the code for building a calculator using HTML and JavaScript. It provided a lot of code, but it was incomplete. This calculator did not work. Let's take a look. The input field is disabled and buttons do not work. I asked it to build the calculator a second time, but it provided me incomplete code once again. I have experimented with a couple other AI solutions other than ChatGPT, and in my opinion, AI won't replace software engineers. In fact, I think it will make programmers more productive. Programmers will be able to build more advanced and powerful software faster than before. Allow me to explain why I think so. It is not a secret that programmers rely heavily on search engines like Google, online communities like Stack Overflow, and numerous websites dedicated to programming tutorials. The availability of code snippets online and capability to search them quickly has increased programmers' productivity. In most situations, programmers do not have to spend time reading manuals and lengthy documentations. We can just search online and get the answers even if the official documentation fails to talk about that particular topic. Because someone has already faced that problem, found the solution, and shared it online with the rest of us. Without search engines like Google and communities like Stack Overflow, programmers would have to read development guides, product manuals, or documentations before beginning to work on something new, and keep such documentation always nearby for quick reference. A side note here, programmers who work with niche proprietary libraries and products still have to read lengthy documentation and development guides because there isn't much discussion happening about those products on the freely accessible web. So search engines aren't of much use in those situations. If something isn't addressed in the official development guide, then the programmer has to reach out to the product vendor for getting the answer, and it can take days to get the answer. But coming back to the code samples that are easily available on the WebWire search engines, those code samples generally are functions common to most software, but they usually make up a tiny portion of the overall code of the software being developed. It is not like you can find the entire code of an e-commerce platform or a social media network online with every imaginable feature waiting for you to take it and launch your own billion-dollar tech company. Just because functioning code snippets are available online doesn't mean that a person with no background in computer programming can build a custom software. Similarly, just because AI can produce code doesn't mean that a person with no programming background can build custom software. I don't think AI can produce complete software. For example, you cannot ask AI to build an e-commerce software. It can give you some basic building blocks, and that too only if you ask it. If you're not a programmer, then you wouldn't know the right questions to ask, and AI wouldn't give you all the code you need to start building the application until you ask. You saw how I had to ask for everything to build the complete chat application. And you also saw how basic the chat application was. I think I was able to get all the code for the chat application because building a basic web-based chat application is a small task with well-defined requirements. Most softwares that programmers develop can't be defined in a few short sentences, which is why I think AI systems will not be able to build a complete custom software, which is what human programmers actually do. It is also worth mentioning that a custom software is an outcome of a lot of discussions between programmers and the users of that software. From my interaction with ChatGPT, I think that AI can speed up the process of putting together some basic building blocks of an application, such as generating database table scripts, writing general helper or utility functions, generating boilerplate code. And these are the things that programmers do not enjoy doing anyway, in my opinion. In fact, there are already tools available that can generate a lot of boilerplate code. For example, there are tools that can read database schema and generate REST APIs for each table in your database. There are libraries and modules that save us from writing the code to read data from the database. Such tools have boosted the productivity without reducing the need for programmers. In fact, the demand of software engineers has been increasing. So AI may change the way programmers work. Instead of searching, we will probably start relying on AI if AI systems go mainstream and become available to us all the time like a search engine. You have to know what to search before search engines can lead you to the relevant content on the web. Just like a search engine, AI is going to be a tool, and you will get the information only if you know the right questions to ask. Programmers also run into a lot of problems even when we have written error-free code. Think about runtime issues, dependency issues, incompatibility between libraries and modules. Application runs on the programmer's machine but fails to run on the server. Code merge issues, debugging and investigating problems, piecing together log statements are some of the many things developers have to deal with to build and maintain software. It is also common that you face a problem, you do an online search, and you find 10 or 15 different solutions for that problem. But none of those solutions work for you. And sometimes there isn't any concrete solution available online. In such situations, a background in software development is a must, which includes abilities like reading the code written by someone else, hands-on working experience, and knowledge acquired while working as a programmer over the course of several years. The way I look at it is that a lot of money is being poured into AI research and development, and yet it isn't able to do everything. Here is an interesting bit of information I found on Wikipedia. In 2017, researchers conducted intelligence tests on publicly available and freely accessible weak AI such as Google AI or Apple's Siri, and others. At the maximum, these AI reached an IQ value of about 47, which corresponds approximately to a 6-year-old child in first grade. This study seems to be around 6 years old now, and I think AI has definitely gotten a little better since then, but it is still failed to identify the smallest number. Remember that? On the other hand, us humans can learn new tasks often without any training, and that I think is the advantage that humans will always have over any artificial intelligence. If you have liked this video, then don't forget to press the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this would help me in gauging interest and help me in deciding what sort of topics should I be covering in my future videos.